Have you ever felt guilty for doing something for yourself? You finally buy something you've wanted for a long time, and instead of enjoying it, a voice inside you says, maybe I shouldn't have bought this. You take a break, and you feel guilty because there are still things you could be doing. Someone needs your help, so you say yes, even when you're already exhausted. Someone asks for your time, and you give it, even when you desperately need time for yourself. And somehow, you've learned to believe that putting yourself first is selfish. Maybe you don't have an ego problem. Maybe you've simply forgotten that you matter, too. There is a difference between selfishness and healthy stewardship. The Bible says in Philippians 2 verse 4, KJV. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Notice the word also. It doesn't say, look only on the things of others. It says also. That means caring for other people doesn't require you to completely abandon yourself. Sometimes, we become so afraid of looking selfish that we become unavailable to ourselves. We constantly choose other people. Their needs. Their expectations. Their problems. Their opinions. Their happiness. And after giving and giving and giving, we suddenly realize. I'm tired. Not just physically tired. Emotionally tired. Mentally tired. Spiritually tired. And sometimes, even resentful. Because you kept saying yes when your heart was saying no. You kept showing up when you needed rest. You kept spending your energy on everyone else while convincing yourself that your own needs could wait. And here's the painful part. Sometimes, nobody even asked you to sacrifice that much. You chose to do it. You thought being needed meant being valuable. You thought saying no meant you were selfish. You thought taking care of yourself meant you had an ego. So you kept shrinking yourself just to make other people comfortable. But listen carefully. Humility does not mean hating yourself. Jesus never taught us that we must destroy ourselves to prove that we love others. In Matthew 22 verse 39, KJV, Jesus said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. As thyself. There is an assumption in that command. You are not supposed to have absolutely no care for yourself. You are called to love others as yourself. So perhaps the problem isn't that you care too much about yourself. Perhaps you've been caring about everyone else so much that you've forgotten how to care for the person God entrusted you with, you. And I'm not talking about becoming self-centered. I'm not saying, forget everybody. Do whatever you want. No. I'm talking about balance. You can be generous without becoming empty. You can serve without destroying yourself. You can love people without constantly abandoning your own needs. You can say no without being cruel. You can rest without being lazy. You can buy something you've worked hard for without feeling ashamed. You can enjoy something simply because you enjoy it. You can pursue a personal interest. You can have a dream. You can have boundaries. And none of those things automatically make you selfish. Sometimes we feel guilty even when we spend money on ourselves. You buy the thing you've been wanting, and immediately you start calculating what else that money could have done for someone else. But if you've been responsible, if you've met your obligations, if you've worked hard, and if the purchase isn't putting you or your family in danger, why must enjoyment automatically come with guilt? Ecclesiastes 3 verse 13, KJV says. And also that every man should eat and drink, and enjoy the good of all his labor, it is the gift of God. Enjoy the good of your labor. That's in the Bible. Your life isn't supposed to be one endless cycle of working, serving, sacrificing, and feeling guilty whenever you experience something good. There is nothing wrong with gratitude. There is nothing wrong with enjoying the fruit of honest work. There is nothing wrong with resting. There is nothing wrong with having something that is simply yours. But here's where wisdom matters. Choosing yourself doesn't mean choosing yourself above God. It doesn't mean ignoring your responsibilities. It doesn't mean hurting other people just because you want what you want. It means recognizing that your needs, limitations, desires, and dreams deserve to be brought before God too. Jesus himself demonstrated the importance of withdrawing from the demands of people. Mark 6 verse 31, KJV says, "Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while." Rest a while. Even ministry had moments of stepping away. Even Jesus valued solitude. So why do we sometimes think we're more spiritual when we're completely exhausted? Why do we wear exhaustion like a badge of honor? Why do we think being constantly available makes us more godly? Maybe you're not weak. Maybe you're simply tired because you've been trying to carry responsibilities that were never meant to be carried all at once. And maybe today, God is reminding you. You don't have to earn permission to rest. You don't have to apologize for having needs. You don't have to feel guilty for enjoying something good. You don't have to constantly prove that you're useful. Your worth isn't determined by how many people need you. Your worth isn't determined by how much you sacrifice. And your value doesn't disappear when you finally say, "I need a moment for myself." Galatians 6 verse 5, KJV says, "For every man shall bear his own burden." There are responsibilities that belong to you. But there are also burdens that belong to other people. You cannot save everyone. You cannot fix everything. You cannot always be available. And you don't have to. Sometimes, the most mature thing you can say is, "I can't do that right now." Not because you don't care, but because you understand your limits. So perhaps it's time to stop confusing self-neglect with humility. Stop thinking that having no boundaries makes you loving. Stop thinking that always saying yes makes you good. Stop thinking that wanting something for yourself automatically makes you selfish. You can be humble and still have boundaries. You can be generous and still have savings. You can love others and still love yourself properly. You can serve God and still rest. And you can choose yourself sometimes, not because you have an ego, but because you understand that you are also a person God created, entrusted with a life, a body, a mind, gifts, responsibilities, and dreams. So the next time you want something and immediately feel guilty, pause. Ask yourself, is this actually wrong, or have I simply become uncomfortable with doing something good for myself? The next time someone asks for your help, pause. Ask, can I genuinely give this without destroying myself? And the next time you need to rest, don't automatically call yourself lazy. Maybe you're simply human. Remember what Jesus said in Matthew 11 verse 28, KJV. "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Rest isn't always rebellion. Sometimes, rest is obedience. And choosing yourself sometimes isn't about putting yourself above everyone else. It's about finally understanding that you are someone, too. So breathe. Rest. Enjoy the fruit of your labor. Spend wisely. Dream again. Set healthy boundaries. Say no when necessary. And stop punishing yourself for having a life outside of serving everyone else. Because God didn't call you to disappear so that everybody else could be comfortable. He called you to walk with Him. And sometimes, walking with God means learning when to give. And when to receive. When to serve. And when to rest. When to say yes. And when to say no. And when you've spent years choosing everyone else. Maybe it's time to let God teach you something you never learned. It's okay to choose yourself sometimes. Not above God. Not at the expense of others. But with wisdom, gratitude, and grace. This is Beyond Sunday. And perhaps the lesson today is simple. You don't need an ego to have boundaries. You don't need selfishness to have desires. And you don't need guilt to prove that you care. Sometimes, taking care of yourself is not the opposite of love. Sometimes, it is what allows you to keep loving without losing yourself. Until next time, remember. Don't just survive for everybody else. Live the life God entrusted to you. This is Beyond Sunday. See you in the next episode.